Russia's most protected resort, Putin's own Black Sea getaway, was torn apart because of less than 20 pounds of explosives carried by drones you could hold in your hand. That's the shocking truth. For decades, enormous defense budgets promised Moscow's leaders safety behind countless layers of steel, radar, and soldiers. But in one evening, Ukraine proved that cost means nothing when deception is flawless. A fake radar cloud, a civilian plane bluff, and a swarm maneuver later, Putin's sanctuary was rubble. The attack wasn't just tactical, it destroyed the illusion that Russia's most sacred compounds are safe. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. For decades, the cliffs of Foros stood like a natural barricade for Russia's ruling class. The sanatorium and surrounding villas perched above the sea were not just summer retreats, they were the inner sanctum of power. Protected by geography and reinforced by man-made defenses, the area symbolized privilege and safety. Generals, ministers, and even Putin himself had private compounds here, complete with their own guards and secure lines of communication. To Moscow, Foros was untouchable. The cliffs rising straight from the Black Sea meant no stealthy approach from below, while above, the compound sat behind heavy fencing, cameras, and layers of patrols. Every angle was covered, or so they believed. That confidence ran deep, because security around Foros wasn't handled like an ordinary base. The airspace was locked down by overlapping radar coverage, feeding into Black Sea command posts. S-400 batteries could target anything from drones to fighter jets long before they entered Crimean skies. On the ground, Spetsnaz units ran regular sweeps with night vision gear, hunting for infiltrators long before they reached the compounds. The message was simple. This zone was more than a vacation retreat. It was a fortress wrapped in layers of steel, electronics, and elite soldiers. But when a new kind of threat appears, one designed to bypass strength instead of taking it head-on, what good are those investments? Russian units were confident in their technology. Patrols carried thermal scopes worth $10,000 apiece, capable of spotting the heat of a bird in flight from hundreds of meters away. Anti-drone rifles, each weighing close to 20 pounds, were slung across their shoulders, designed to jam signals and drop intruding quadcopters from the sky. Every layer of these defenses screamed deterrence, yet that assumption left them one step behind. Because Ukraine wasn't planning to match Russia's firepower, it was planning to outthink it. Far from the cliffs over the waterline, the Mura 55 drone boat skimmed the waves. It looked like a fishing craft on infrared, but hidden in its outline were 6 OSA drones stored in a recessed bay. By staying low and hugging the horizon, the Mura slipped beneath the detection envelope of most radar arrays. It did not come alone. Once within range of the coastal defenses, the mothership triggered its first weapon, the ghost chain. Strips of aluminum chaff scattered in carefully calculated arcs, bouncing signals in every direction. To Russian radar operators, the screen lit up with what looked like dozens of incoming threats, cluttering their picture until they couldn't tell real targets from noise. As confusion spread through the radar rooms, the OSA drones unfolded from their carrier and began their run. Each small drone crept along the waterline before swinging against the sheer cliffs. Flying just meters above the waves, they used shadow to mask their presence. By placing rock between themselves and radar stations above, they erased themselves from detection arcs. Even on patrol, Spetsnaz soldiers looking through their expensive optics saw nothing but darkness against the cliff base. For them, the threat had to come from the sky, not the void beneath their feet. And here is where the deception cut deepest. Despite billions invested in sensors, missiles, and advanced optics, the defenses were blinded by 500 strips of foil and clever use of terrain. The swarm passed clean through the edge of Russia's most secure zone, without a single alarm raised. In that instant, the lesson was clear. Brute force mattered less than exploiting blind spots. And the next move would not just embarrass Russia's defenses, it would force commanders into a decision more dangerous than any attack. Shoot or don't shoot. Once the drones change their disguise, imagine watching your radar screen light up with what looks like a civilian airplane drifting toward a populated area. It's not a missile, not a drone, but something carrying the electronic signature of a passenger aircraft. That's the nightmare one Russian commander faced at the exact moment Ukraine's swarm crept closer to the cliffs of Foros. Every radar operator learns the same lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous threat is the one you hesitate to engage. And in this case, hesitation wasn't measured in minutes. It was measured in split seconds, with Putin's safe retreat hanging in the balance. Inside Russian control rooms, the atmosphere turned chaotic. Instead of clear targets, the ghost chain created overlapping signals stretched across the radar grid. Operators raised their voices as new tracks appeared, then vanished into noise. The consoles showed multiple fast-moving objects, but not in directions that made sense. Some blips swarmed west, others east, while a single slower-moving signal aligned on a path civilian traffic could use. That profile shouldn't have emerged inside a restricted zone, and that made commanders question, was it an aircraft in danger or something designed to force their hand? Adding to the confusion, Ukraine's electronic warfare layer blurred the entire picture. GPS readings went dark across sectors. Communications between units glitched, forcing officers to repeat orders that often arrived scrambled or incomplete. On the ground, Spetsnaz teams moved in reaction to decoys buzzing overhead, kicking up trails of noise that drew their attention away from the cliffs below. Soldiers tried to visually identify targets, but in the night haze they tilted scopes at shadows and empty sky. Their optics worked, but the decoys were designed to keep them occupied, placing warfighters in a chase they could not win. Meanwhile, one OSA drone altered its electronic fingerprint. Instead of showing up as a small rotorcraft or unmanned aerial system, it mimicked the reflective qualities of a passenger plane. To radar, its shape looked as if a civilian aircraft was flying at low altitude. No airliner could be present legally in this closed zone, yet the possibility forced officers to question every order. Shooting meant the risk of downing a plane filled with civilians. Not shooting meant leaving their most protected enclave exposed. The pressure sat directly on commanders trained to react quickly, but fearful of igniting international outrage. That one bluff had devastating effects. From ground patrols to S-400 battery crews, the chain of command froze, holding fire to avoid what might later look like mass civilian casualties. No officer wanted to be directly responsible for a mistake that could collapse Moscow's narrative of control. In those moments of hesitation, OSA drones shifted gears. The same units that had appeared as small distractions transformed instantly into armed platforms. They rose from the shadow line of the cliffs, diving into final approach vectors designed for impact. The strike was precise. Glass ceilings shattered under explosions. Reinforced walls buckled, sending debris into rooms once considered impregnable. Meeting halls lined with communication equipment fell silent. War planning chambers, the core of coordination in Crimea, crumbled in seconds. Security forces, who had prepared for years against saboteurs on foot or missiles from the sky, now watched defenses collapse from inside the fortress itself. That night, the bluff turned radar screens into a liability. By creating a phantom civilian target, Ukraine ensured hesitation locked the trigger fingers of Russia's most expensive defenses. And as the dust rose above Foros, the signal across the Black Sea was unmissable. Even a retreat thought safe behind layers of steel and secrecy could be reduced to ashes in minutes. What happened at one resort went far beyond broken glass. It rippled into the entire balance of power across the coastlines facing that sea. This strike wasn't just demolition. It revealed a weakness far more damaging. Walls and radars can be rebuilt, but once leaders see their strongest defenses pierced by sleight of hand, confidence unravels. Foros was supposed to embody safety, yet it showed how deception can cut deeper than any missile. Billions went into shielding Crimea, yet a swarm built at a fraction of that cost dismantled the illusion of superiority. Strategy, not size, tipped the balance. And the question now is simple: where does this lead? Because swarm warfare won't pause at Crimea. The next phase could redraw entire maps.